Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're here to take on some challenging sources, pull out the key insights, and basically give you a shortcut to being genuinely well-informed.
And today we are undertaking a really fascinating and I'd say dense deep dive. Our source material comes from excerpts of a pivotal 1980 speech. It was given by Reverend Sun Myung Moon on what the Unification Church calls the Day of All Things.
The day of all things, that definitely sets the stage. So our mission here is to navigate this whole framework. It's a complete system, It covers God, creation, a pretty intense path to spiritual mastery.
And a radical geopolitical critique of the modern world. We're looking for the core of this movement's identity, the surprising parts, the challenging parts, all taken directly from the source itself.
Okay, so where do we even begin with something this big?
Well, we start with the foundational premise, and it's a powerful one. It's basically a declaration that, that almost everyone is ignorant. The speech says people today are fundamentally lost.
Lost.
They don't know their origin, their destination, and they certainly don't know who their master is.
And it goes beyond just identity, right? The source argues people can't even answer basic questions like, why did God create the sun and the moon? What's their real value? It's like everything is misunderstood.
Exactly. And that leads to this really stunning, exclusive claim. The Unification Church is identified as the only group that can definitively answer these cosmic questions.
The only group. That's a bold assertion.
It is. It's saying they are the sole inheritors of this ultimate truth.
So what's the justification for that? I mean, for being the sole inheritor, how does the source explain that authority?
It comes down to the nature of their relationship with God. It's not just, a passive belief. It's not enough to say, oh, God exists.
Right.
The requirement is to actively attend and serve the living God.
Mm-hmm.
And the movement sees itself as having reestablished that correct living connection.
And this connection, it's described in these incredibly grand terms. An inseparable relationship, bound by a love so profound that human reason just can't touch it.
It can't. It's beyond language. It's beyond art, like dance or music. The idea is that this love is completely totalizing. To express it, you'd have to use every fiber of your being, and even then, the source says, it wouldn't be enough.
This sounds like a love that governs the very physics of their cosmology.
It does. And that brings us right into the cosmic order, and this idea of creation's lament. This divine relationship is mirrored in nature. It's what they call the original subject-object dynamic.
Okay, so like the sun and the earth.
Exactly. The sun is the subject, the giver of life, and life on earth is the object. And the object's job is to return glory. You see birds singing more joyously in the sun. Everything turns towards its subject.
And the source says everything in creation does this correctly.
With one crucial exception.
Man.
Man's unique failure. The source calls man out as the only creation that is utterly lost. Doesn't know where it belongs or what it should be doing. The speech calls his existence truly pitiful.
So man has boasted about being supreme, but without that central point, that connection to God's love, he's just lost. And that throws all of creation into confusion.
It completely undermines God's central theme. The source is very clear on this. The physical world was just an ornament, a backdrop for the main event.
Which was the love of God embodied by man.
Right. So if the backdrop, the sun and the birds is perfect, but the main actor man lacks love, then the whole cosmic order grieves. Creation looks at man, who is meant to be its master, and instead sees a source of hatred.
A source of hatred. That's a profound sense of cosmic betrayal.
It really is. Now, there's a surprising detail here about how praise should even be initiated.
Oh.
The source suggests women should take the lead in praising God, coming before men. It uses this stark language.
Oh.
It describes women as being created beautiful like flowers, while men are flat and plain.
Flat and plain. So there's a hierarchy of beauty leading back to God. But for everyone, men and women, the quest is the same.
Yes. And it's defined in these really intense terms of domination. The goal is to grab the love of God, dominate it, and become the personification of that love.
Dominate it. And if someone actually achieves this,
then everything changes. If a person personifies that perfect love, the source says even God has to follow that person. And if God follows, all of creation follows. That person becomes the true master.
Okay, that sets an incredibly high bar. And it leads us to the journey required to achieve this mastery. This is where we get the first big metaphor, right? The heavenly train.
Yeah, the heavenly train is a great way to picture it. God is the locomotive, man is the passenger cars, and creation is all the freight cars.
And everyone is desperate to get on board.
Desperate. But the key choice isn't if you get on, it's where you sit. The source contrasts the false world, the material world, with the unification goal.
People who just want comfort, they're sitting in the last car.
And the source gets very visceral here. That last car is described as the place for dumping human waste. That's the destination for the comfortable, the materially minded.
So the movement wants to redirect that greed. Be greedy, but for the right thing.
Exactly. They want members to be greedy to sit on the locomotive itself.
Which is the hard path.
The hardest.
Hmm.
It's noisy, you smell the fuel, you have to do the dirty work shoveling coal to keep the engine moving. There are no soft seats, just labor.
But the reward is in the arrival. When that train gets to the final terminal, the locomotive enters first. The engineer and the firemen, covered in soot, they're welcomed by God.
And God says he loves their perfume of sweat and coal dust. Meanwhile, the people in the nice passengers' cars, they smell like the devil. It's a total spiritual inversion. What the world sees as dirty is what God sees as sweet.
And this whole journey is necessary because of a historical trauma, right?
Yeah.
The missing love connection.
Since the fall of man, that original bond between God and creation has been severed. So the natural order got reversed. Nature, which stayed pure, was forced to become a kind of bridge or a ladder for fallen man to climb back up.
And that climb is incredibly structured. The source lays out 6 specific stages to become a true master of creation.
It's almost like a spiritual military. You start at the very bottom, servant of servants. They call it the private first class, or PFC, of the Unification Church.
And you work your way up from there. Servant, adopted son, true son.
Then true parents, which is the ultimate goal. And finally, mastering God's heart. But
Yeah.
these aren't just theoretical titles. You have to earn them.
And to make sure it's practical, there's a very specific real-world requirement.
Right. Fundraising, MFT, the mobile fundraising team. The source calls this a required course for your PhD in the university where God taught the courses.
So the mundane work of fundraising is elevated to a spiritual mandate.
It's essential. It forces you to master that lowest level, to sweat for creation. It's the field work you need to prove you're willing to endure the locomotive's heat.
And this field work, this practical application, it ties directly into a core concept you need to understand: the home church process.
Yes, this is the mechanism for distributing that spiritual cure to the sick world. Members are assigned to specific neighborhoods to rebuild community. It's the practical side of that PhD course.
So the mastery isn't just a title, it's the ability to withstand the final test. This is the chaotic bridge back to God.
A really chaotic scene. The Messiah comes to lead people across, and everyone, the greedy, the godly, they're all waiting. And it's so frightening that God might just shatter all the man-made bridges.
Leaving only the Messiah who knows how to cross using the serpent rope.
Which is a terrifying test of conviction. It looks like a real fierce serpent with a burning tongue, but the speaker says, no, this is the heavenly rope.
And to hold on, you need what the source calls heart-strong faith. You have to be fearless, ready to die.
The greedy people who just want to save themselves, they retreat. And what's really interesting is how the source reframes opposition. These deprogrammers trying to pull members away.
They're not an obstacle.
They're an opportunity. An opportunity to become a spiritual hero by holding on even tighter. It turns persecution into a chance for promotion.
And if you hang on, the snake winds around you and lifts you to the other side, to a glorious new world. It's a process that demands absolute trust.
So this incredible personal journey is set against a very radical critique of the world. And it focuses squarely on America.
Yet the source delivers a really severe censure. It sees America as the champion chosen by God after World War II.
But a champion that failed its calling. Specifically, by not extending its influence over Soviet Russia. That failure is pegged as the direct cause of America's social and economic problems later on.
And because of that failure, there's a punishment. God now views the nation as, and this is a direct quote, a smelly cripple that still thinks it's on top of the world.
A smelly cripple.
Yeah.
God has denied America, and the expectation is that the world will too. So if America is the sick world, what's the cure?
The unification movement. It's described as God's emergency task force, and they're bringing the DP pill.
The divine principle pill. And the strategy is opportunistic. As America declines, people who are suffering will eventually see the healthy move-in members and ask what medicine they're taking.
And they'll want that pill themselves. The prediction is that the sick will eventually give everything, their wealth, their status, to the healthy members who have God's true love.
Which puts the members in the right position to finally be greedy but for spiritual influence, not for earthly things.
And to succeed in this mission, the movement adopts a very intentional countercultural appearance. It's all about hiding the treasure.
Right. It's a direct critique of Western show window culture, which is seen as all facade, empty on the inside. The source praises the Oriental tradition, where they hide their treasure inside.
So the member's identity is defined by humility. They should be the cousins of beggars. The leader himself wears, what, $9 shoes and corduroy pants.
And members are told to dress humbly, look worn out from work, even smell like fish from their work in the fishing industry. It's a spiritual uniform of humility.
But it's tactical. Why dress like a beggar?
Because the real treasure is the basket of diamonds, God's love that's hidden inside you. The logic is simple. No thief is going to bother a smelly beggar.
But God will follow them.
God will follow them everywhere. It's spiritual protection through humility. And for those who might leave the movement, the source says they're still connected by a love string.
A love string.
Yes, and it gets thicker the farther they go, so they have to eventually feel its pull and return to the basket of God's love.
Yeah.
There's no real escape.
Okay, let's pull back for a second. If the goal is to become the master of all things, what does this day of all things actually achieve?
It's about restoring the original ideal, making the universe God's dwelling place by fulfilling that covenant with creation.
The covenant being that when man is elevated from that PFC all the way to true parent's nature gets elevated with him, man becomes the bridge nature always needed.
Exactly. And the ultimate ambition is to live a life totally consumed by this mission, to be a perfect channel of God's love, enduring every hardship to achieve it.
And at the end of your life, you can finally say, it is finished, but only after grabbing the entire love of God, not prematurely, which is a critique the source levels at Jesus on the cross. It requires total lifetime fulfillment.
And that brings us to the final provocative thought for you to consider. The source claims that when you achieve this state, this lordship, you can exert real dominion over your environment. You can literally command the clouds to get out of the way.
Or invite a bird to sing closer to you, just to receive God's love through your presence. So think about what it means to be a lord of your immediate environment. If your conviction is that profound, what conviction does it take to fulfill that home church process, that practical mission, to design and build a special bridge to bring everyone else who's still caught in the chaos back across the river?